Hi, I'm Yoonjin Kim, and this is my Smart History presentation on The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. The Garden of Earthly Delights is a triptych oil painting by Hieronymus Bosch, an early Netherlandic painter. It was created between 1490 and 1500 CE, and currently resides in the Museo del Prado in Madrid, Spain. The triptych features 3 oakwood panels that depict the creation of humanity, humanity on Earth, and humanity's suffering in hell. The painting has a very crowded composition with a sense of great spatial depth, as the figures are very small and spread out over vast environments. This piece explores the fate of humanity when the Last Judgment comes. It depicts how humanity got to the point of suffering through God's creation and succumbing to their sinful desires. A little background on the artist Hieronymus Bosch. He was a Dutch Netherlandic painter from Brabant. He was known for his existential and philosophical painting style, which depicted various religious scenes. Many of these paintings included allegorical and fantastical elements that contributed to his unique style. Although his paintings started off fairly neutral and realistic, and they were very neutral depictions of biblical scenes, his more hellish and surrealist style started to emerge near the 16th century with paintings like Triptych of the Adoration of the Magi and The Temptation of St. Anthony. Bosch had already been favored by European nobility for his works that delved into religious themes, as religious-themed paintings were the only acceptable ones at the time. Because of the intense imagery in these panels, it is unlikely that this piece was used in a church or monastery. The triptych was likely commissioned by a noble, Henry III of Nassau, or his nephew, Engelbert II. So who/what is in this piece? This piece depicts humanity undergoing 3 phases: creation, indulgence, and wrath, respectively. The first panel depicts God creating Adam and Eve and introducing Eve to Adam in the Garden of Eden. The second panel depicts humanity indulging in various pleasures in a fantastical garden of desires. And the third panel depicts humanity succumbing to torture in hell. The way Bosch portrays these naked figures interacting in a surrealist landscape gives this triptych a folkloric essence. The humans are depicted with a strange animalistic undertone that simultaneously dehumanizes and humanizes them at the same time. In panel 1, we can see Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and God stands in the middle of them. He is grasping Eve's wrist and introducing her to him. They're placed in a fantastical garden filled with wild animals and vivid nature, and this is the panel that's sort of closest to reality, I would say. This panel depicts humanity's origination, and it depicts God's generosity as he gifted the gift of life and creation to these 2 mortals, but it also foreshadows how in their first meeting, when Adam and Eve were overcome with desire for each other, it would lead to their betrayal of God and their departure from the garden. So panel 2 is a lot more chaotic than the first one, and it's a lot bigger. It's in the middle. This piece is filled with figures. Compositionally, it's filled with tiny figures, which makes the space seem very huge and indulgent. These figures exist in a lush, surrealist landscape filled with strange enlarged fruit, strange man-made devices, and strange structures in the background. So it's kind of an intersection of the world that God has gifted them and the world that they have created for themselves. All these figures seem to be indulging in a sense of pleasure with reckless abandon. And it depicts kind of a shameful yet euphoric feeling as humanity is plunging into a world of sin. They're reaping from nature's resources and capturing God's creatures, and they are not giving any of this a second thought. So the third panel is arguably the most horrific and chaotic of the 3. This panel depicts humanity at the Last Judgment being tortured for their sins. The naked figures in the scene kind of scramble around the composition. Some of them are laying in defeat, some of them are trying to fight against the horrific figures around them. And Bosch is utilizing his surrealist style and pushing it to the max. This scene is not grounded in reality at all. It's a lot more far removed from the last 2 panels. And this really allows Bosch to take full control of warping the environment around the figures. They are kind of stuck in this world of body horror, as a lot of the things that are torturing them seem alive. So this is more of like a psychological sense of torture, not a sense of torture that humans could place upon each other. This is a sense of ultimate torture. So what exactly does this painting mean? This piece is an extremely existential one, to say the least, and there's not really a clear message from the author of how to interpret it. Something strange that this piece does is that there's a sense of almost empathy or relatability within the characters. You can't really help but to feel bad for them, as they seem to not understand why what they're doing is bad. It seems like it's almost like an animalistic tendency inside them to rebel and to sin. So through his unique and twisted style, Bosch explores how humans have no grasp of their effect on humanity's image, and that the viewer can view this and kind of introspect on how they fit into the grand scheme of things. Although it is unclear what Bosch was specifically trying to tackle in this triptych, the allegorical and fantastical elements of this painting bring light to a hidden meaning that can be speculated about through a modern lens. Do humans deserve to be punished for inevitably succumbing to their intrinsic nature, or is humanity so thoroughly corrupt that we must be purified and start anew? Here are my sources. Thank you for watching.